I would also make the point that your first clients shouldn't be the EU, the US, or Latin America. No, it should be West Africa. You are producing West or Central Africa. Your first client should be Cameroon, should be Ivory Coast, should be Senegal. I take the example of Germany. Germany in Europe. The first client of Germany is France. The second is England. The third is Spain. You see, half of the EU trade is intra-EU. In Africa, Africa is the only continent that doesn't trade with itself.
Okay, so now, based on everything you've just said, what does the EU really want from Nigeria?
What we want is just to, what we want from Nigeria is to recognize the necessity to create a big West African market. We have no offensive agenda to vis-à-vis Nigeria or vis-à-vis West Africa. We have our current business. We see West Africa more as a place of investment rather than a place of exporting our products. We have already long-established European companies. They can do much more. You know, big companies established in Nigeria since years, if decades, they can expand their business, but for that they need to receive the right signals, and the right signals are basically all the elements of an enabling environment, right? So a fiscal regime, access to land, rule of law. How will you invest in a country if your investments are not protected by law? And if you can enforce your rights, so you need an efficient judiciary, an official judicial system, an efficient rule of law. Those big companies or small companies, they don't need financing. We have the financing. I mean, our banking system, our financial institutions. The problem is not the money. The problem is the protection of your money.
So let's talk about that ban. You know, speaking a little earlier, you talked about how you buy mostly oil and gas products from Nigeria, and now for this conference you're focusing on how to develop the agricultural chain. But then there was a ban on importation of beans, or exportation of beans and some other commodities out of Nigeria. So how do you tie that in with trying to encourage more business investments in the agricultural sector and the agricultural value chain?
It's again a wrong story. It's not about, I mean, I hear people mentioning the ban of agricultural products. We have banned for 1 year dried beans. Those dried beans have been rejected 60 times by the custom post office of the European member states because they were full of pesticides, post-harvest pesticides. So we have our own laws and regulation, and we are protecting the health of our consumers. So we very much regret that the Nigerian consumers are obliged to eat dried beans full of pesticides. So we are not protecting our markets, we are protecting our consumers. We do not produce dried beans. So there is nothing strategic there. You know, those plot theory, there is no conspiration against the dried beans of Nigeria. There is just a regulation whereby we cannot accept on the EU territory products that are full of very dangerous products, like the pesticides. And it's a big issue for the Nigerian consumers. You know, all those discussions about trade are always referring to the rights and the benefits for the business. But what about the Nigerian citizen? What about the Nigerian consumer? So I think the real question is, how does Nigeria tolerate in Nigeria that the Nigerians are obliged to eat, unfortunately, products that are treated with very dangerous products?
Now you're having a conversation with the private sector business community at this fourth EU Nigeria Business Forum. Yep. What are you telling them? You're trying to encourage that, okay, yes, Nigeria at this time is focusing on diversifying its economy. Yes. We're looking at this very key sector, agriculture, and we're looking at major players in this sector. So these are the issues that were found with regards some of your commodities like the beans you're mentioning now. But we want to see increased export of some of these commodities. So what are you talking to this business community about?
No, we are talking with the business community here, and we are explaining that, first of all, there are gigantic possibilities of diversifying the economy of Nigeria in the sector of agriculture, as you mentioned. either products that will replace importations. You know today how many hundreds of thousands of tons Nigeria is importing in the palm oil sector. This is absolutely incredible. You have land, you have plantation, you can multiply by 10 your plantations. Why aren't you developing your plantation? So that's the very clear, very immediate message to Nigeria, Nigerian authorities and Nigerian investors. Invest more in palm oil, which is for import substitution for you Nigerian consumers. But there are other products that you can export on the global markets. Cotton, textiles, cocoa, coffee, rubber. So you remember, or maybe you are too young, but remember 30, 40 years ago, Nigeria was producing cotton. Nigeria was producing rubber. They were exporting rubber. Today, no. Why? Why is it so? Problem of competitiveness. So people are going to answer our problem of protection. No, it's not protection. The natural protection has been lost by the lack of competitiveness, the lack of technical progress, and smuggling, and there are many reasons explaining the deterioration of the situation in basic products. So the main message is certainly you can do more, you Nigerian investors, and we European, we can co-invest. I took the example of palm oil. 2 or 3 big European companies have invested already 50 years ago in palm oil. They would like to do more. But I can repeat the same message for other commodities. Cocoa, for instance. I used to work in Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is the world leader in cocoa. Ghana is the second. Why isn't it Nigeria? I can explain that with cashew. Cashew nuts, very simple product, but just a big market. India is the world leader in the consumption of cashew. So you can tomorrow, you can multiply by 10 your production of cashew, not raw cashew, roasted cashew, packaged cashew. Again, it's important to bear in mind the necessity of not only diversifying in terms of production, but also in developing the transformation of those products.
Mr. Arian, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and
thank you very much
giving
for
us
the
those
invitation.
perspectives.
Thank you very much.
Michael Arian is the EU Ambassador and Head of Delegation, Nigeria and ECOWAS. Business Morning continues in just a moment. Stay with us.